if you've grown up in the Christian circles, what for any period of time, you've heard words like calling, purpose, God's will tossed around. And admittedly, it's something that I myself have come to wonder about frequently, and wonder what mine is and all those fun things. So today we're going through a few holes. We're going to talk about it. What does God's calling look like? What does it sound like? What of all these things? And I'm just going to take you on this journey of what it's like to find God's calling in your life, in my life more in particularly, especially right now in my life. So welcome back to the channel. My name's Cooper. I appreciate you tuning in and clicking on the video, and let's have some fun. So we're out here at Lake Springfield today, playing a few holes, talking about calling. Hole 1, 294, plays really uphill, but just out here tossing a few discs. Short. Ooh, not bad though. Not bad. You know, there's something energizing about direction, and I gotta say, right now, this is probably one of the most alive I felt in a really long time. I have no idea what's going to happen in my life, but that's fine. I'm working on saying my next yes is where I'm at right now. You know, it's not about making the perfect decision or even really the quote-unquote right decision. It's about the next yes. It's about prioritizing obedience over comfort. And so, you know, very similar to a challenging hole 2 here. Sometimes it's about putting a shot in the middle. Sometimes even your knocks can put you in the middle. Oh, I pulled that one badly. Little three directions. On fire. Second one was better. You know, they said that this is about obedience and the next yes. And I have to admit, my next yes is not the yes that I would have picked for myself, you know. I never imagined that my life would come to the idea that I would be attending seminary, looking at full-time ministry. But here I am, I stand before you, excited. Nervous, worried, but excited. And I haven't been able to release that excitement fully, you know? I haven't been able to let go of it. Every time I think about it, I just get even a little bit more excited about what could happen. You know, I've always been a person who loves clarity. I love having a plan. That's where some of this anxiety, some of this worry shows up, is in the lack of plan or the lack of not knowing what's coming next. I remember telling Shelby, hey, I think this is something that God's calling me to. And I flat out told her, I said, I have no idea what it looks like moving forward. I said, I don't know even where I'm going to go to school. And that's something I'm working through right now. I'm working through where to go to seminary and what to do exactly. And it's stretching me. It's stretching me outside my comfort zone. But the excitement in it is, I love the idea of developing a deeper understanding and knowledge of the Lord and getting to put my faith to the test in the sense of what I already know and what I could potentially learn. It's a great feeling knowing that I'm going to stretch my faith. This is arguably one of my best rounds of shot hunt ever on this hole. I have one there and one right over here. And then the other one is just on the other side of the hill. Oh no! Ooh. I thought I lost that disc forever. You know, I say I'm a planner, and I am. To the core. It may not look like it always, but I am a big time planner. And, that comes out in different ways from time to time. And it's usually when I don't know something, I get frustrated. I get upset that I'm not smart enough or whatever it might be. But there's been peace about this whole time that allows me to just kind of let it be. But despite the excitement, despite some of the abilities to let go of what's going on, there's a real reality where I already have responsibilities. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a teacher where I'm comfortable at in a great school. But the reality of it is we're not called to comforts, we're called to fruit. When you're called to fruit, it's not always easy work. A farmer doesn't work the field all year for nothing, but in order for a harvest to be had. And it's a similar situation right now. I'm being pushed outside that comfort zone. And I know the reality of it is that this is where God's going to do his best work in me, is outside my comfort zone, because why would he want me, period, first off, but B, why would he want someone who's okay being okay? I look at the call of the first disciples. They're out fishing and they left immediately. They didn't wait for things to get better. They didn't wait until they had everything in order. They left immediately. I think of Saul, who became Paul, on the road to Damascus. He's struck down by a great booming voice and said, yes. I think of Ruth, who said, here I am. I just think of all of these individuals throughout the scripture who said yes when they were called. And so, to not sound cliche or overly spiritual, but that's just what I'm trying to do. But in the back of my mind, there's those comforts. There's worry about, am I making the right choices for my family? Am I being the best husband, father that I could be? This decision for full-time ministry and seminary, it just doesn't affect me anymore. It's going to affect my whole family. And right now I want what's best for my family. I want to raise my boys to be God-fearing men. I want to lead Shelby in the most biblical way I can. And yet sometimes I fail. More times than not, I fail. But by the grace of God, I get a second chance every day. And this calling is my second chance at ministry, I feel like. And so I'm going to take it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to step out on faith, not knowing what's going to come, worried about this, that, and another thing, but knowing that the creator of the universe, who knows the number of hairs on my head, who knew me in my mother's womb, has my back. And so while, I can't really say where I'm going or what I'm doing or anything of that matter right now because I don't know. The nice part about it is I know who does know. And so if I remember to stay faithful, if I keep saying yes, if I take my next yes, then what do I really have to worry about? As I've walked these few holes today, and I'm glad you got to come along with me, clarity didn't come magically. I don't know where seminary is going to take place. I don't know what happens after seminary. I really don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow, if we're just being honest. what I do know is that there is a wonderful, gracious, merciful God that I get to serve every day. And when he calls you to something, it's a good idea to follow. If you look at Jonah, Jonah said no initially and then regretted it immediately. Jonah would have rather have died than gone to the Ninevites, gone to Nineveh. When he gets on the boat and it gets rough, he says, "Throw me in and let me die." That's my translation of it, but this is what he's saying. Instead of going to Nineveh like he was supposed to, he'd rather be dead. He ends up swallowed by the big fish for 3 days, where he gets to sit there and reflect and live to go tell the Ninevites about Christ, about God. So, in closing, I just want to say that sometimes while we think ignoring God's calling is safer, sometimes it's even more dangerous.